The galaxy didn't remember Earth. That was the first shock Lieutenant Mara Vey discovered when she walked into the archive dome on Taloris Prime and found the human data slots covered in dust. Not erased. Not locked. Forgotten. The archivists, long, crystalline beings who looked like walking prisms, barely even recognized the word human. When she said, Earth, they tilted their refracting heads and hummed as if she'd asked about an extinct bug. The funny part? She hadn't even meant to be in the archive. Mara had taken a wrong transport, missed her platform while chasing down a pickpocket who'd stolen her wrist pad. She'd stormed into the wrong dome, realized she was surrounded by scholarly aliens who smelled like burned ozone, and had just wanted to leave quietly. Instead, she'd pulled up a catalog to check if her personal records had been compromised. She typed, "Human." Nothing. Well, not nothing. The catalog chirped once, thought too long, and spat out a single listing, marked in pale gray text, "Extinct, archived category pending removal." Mara blinked, then leaned in. "Excuse me. That's a mistake. Humans aren't extinct." The archivist nearest her fluttered its crystal fronds. "Extinct, yes. Or irrelevant. Similar outcome. Few cycles since last mention." Mara's mouth opened, then shut. She laughed, mostly to break the rising itch in her throat. "Irrelevant? That's rude. I'm standing right here." The archivist regarded her. Light bent through its body and cast rainbow bars across her uniform. It looked almost apologetic, if blocks of living glass could be apologetic. "Standing, yes. But forgotten. Records indicate removal." Mara tried again. "You're telling me the galaxy just stopped remembering Earth?" Another archivist chimed in, tones like grinding stones. "Galactic census reports minimal impact. Your people ceased council attendance 300 rotations past. Memory of your species diluted." Mara felt like she'd been smacked by a joke no one else found funny. She was human, born on Ceres Station, raised on freighters, trained in the Outer Fleet. Humanity was still around, still building ships, still scraping survival out of rock and radiation. And yet, the galaxy had forgotten them. Not feared, not hated. Forgotten. She slapped the console shut. "Yeah, well, forgetting us doesn't make us gone." The archivists only hummed in disinterest. Back aboard her ship, Ardent Dawn, Mara told her crew. "They didn't take it well." "They think we're dead?" gasped Ensign Jules, the youngest of the bunch, barely 20 and still convinced the galaxy was full of wonder instead of taxes. "Like officially? Extinct? That's what the archives said." Mara threw herself into the pilot's chair, boots propped against the console. "Apparently we stopped showing up to their political dinner parties, and they assumed we went belly up." Chief Engineer Dara snorted. "Typical. Ignore us for a few centuries, then assume we croaked. Lazy bureaucrats." She shoved her grease-stained hands into a rag. "We're out here patching holes with chewing gum, and they're filing us under irrelevant. Figures." Across the cabin, Security Officer Kate smirked. "Could be useful. If they think we're dead, we can do whatever we like." "Ghost Fleet." Mara arched a brow. "You sound almost cheerful about it. Why not?" Cade shrugged. He was built like a wall and carried knives as if the galaxy still settled disputes the old-fashioned way. "Dead men don't pay tariffs. Or fines. Or extradition orders." That got a round of laughter, even from Mara. The crew wasn't exactly law-abiding. Their ship was a patchwork of stolen panels, salvaged cores, and experimental thrusters nobody was supposed to have. They weren't pirates, they preferred the term freelance problem solvers, but they had a knack for being places no one else wanted to be. Still, the laughter felt thin. Forgotten. Extinct. The words echoed in Mara's head. She pulled up the NAV feed and stared at the star maps. Earth wasn't even marked on half of them. Humanity's colonies were dots without names, labeled as uncharted civilian outposts, or worse, left blank. No trade routes. No defense grids. Just absence. "Guess we really are ghosts," she muttered. Their next job only made it worse. A mining syndicate on Varus 9 hired them to haul security drones through a contested zone. Simple contract, decent pay, nothing unusual, until the syndicate rep, a blue-skinned Eurus with too many teeth, asked what species they were for the paperwork. Human, Mara said flatly. The rep blinked all four eyes. Excuse me. Did you say human? Yeah. Problem? The Eurus stared at his datapad, muttered something in his own tongue, then forced a grin. No problem. Just unexpected. Thought your kind vanished. Do we look vanished to you? Mara snapped. The Eurus bared his teeth wider, which was probably meant to be disarming but looked like he was about to bite her head off. Of course not. Merely, surprising. Most clients prefer verified species. Verified? Mara's hand twitched toward her sidearm. Buddy, I'll verify you through an airlock if you keep talking like that. Cade coughed to cover his laugh. Jules went red. In the end, they got the job. But the rep filed their paperwork under unclassified sentience. That night, Mara sat in her bunk staring at the ceiling. Forgotten. Extinct. Unclassified. It was like her species had been erased while they were busy surviving. Humanity hadn't died, but in the galaxy's mind, they may as well have. And if there was one thing Mara Vey hated, it was being underestimated. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. They'd finished another contract, this time smuggling medicine into a quarantine zone. On the way out, they were intercepted by a patrol frigate belonging to the Varen Consortium, one of the big corporate powers. The frigate's captain, a feathered alien with gold-plated feathers, hailed them with a sneer. Unregistered vessel. Identify species and origin. Mara leaned back in her chair. Species? Human. Origin? Earth. There was a pause. Then laughter. Actual, full-bodied alien laughter, shrill and cruel, echoing across the calms. Human? The captain wheezed. Extinct vermin claim to breathe? Delightful. I'll note comedy as your defense. The calm cut. Weapons locked on their hull. Mara's blood went ice-cold. They weren't just forgotten. They were mocked. The Ardent Dawn wasn't built for straight fights, but Mara had never been good at rolling over. She shoved power into the engines, screaming at Dara to reroute the core, while Cade strapped himself in like it was a joyride. Jules panicked in the background, babbling about how they weren't ready to fight a frigate. The first plasma blast tore past their starboard wing. The second nicked their shield, rattling the ship like a tin can. Mara gritted her teeth. They think we're extinct? Fine. Let's show them what extinction looks like. She yanked the thrusters into a corkscrew burn, diving through the frigate's firing arcs. The enemy captain probably hadn't expected a forgotten ship to have thrusters stolen from a prototype racer. The Ardent Dawn danced between plasma bolts, scraped its belly along the frigate's flank, and dumped a cargo bay of industrial flares straight into its sensor arrays. The frigate howled. Literally. The alien captain's scream carried over open comms as his ship went blind. Mara slammed the engines forward, dragged her ship into the black, and left the frigate spinning in circles behind them. When silence finally returned, the crew erupted. Beautiful! Cade shouted, clapping the console hard enough to rattle it. That was art! Art? Dara barked a laugh. That was suicide with style! Jules was still shaking, but his eyes were wide with something close to awe. We beat them. Mara leaned back, hard hammering, lips curling into a grin she didn't entirely feel. No. We reminded them. After that, something shifted aboard the Ardent Dawn. They weren't just freelancers anymore. They were representatives of a species the galaxy had tried to bury. Forgotten? Maybe once. But not anymore. Mara looked at her crew, scrappy, stubborn, ridiculous, and felt the fire catch. If the galaxy forgot us, she said quietly, we'll make them remember. Not with treaties. Not with begging. With fire. Her crew stared. Then, one by one, they grinned. About time, Cade said. And for the first time in centuries, humanity's ghost fleet began to wake. The galaxy had laughed. That single moment, an alien captain dismissing humanity as a joke, lodged in Mara's chest like shrapnel. It wasn't just an insult to her crew. It was an insult to every miner choking on dust in the belt, every settler scratching life out of barren rock, every child learning under cracked domes and recycled air. The galaxy thought they were gone. A species erased from memory. Well, ghosts had teeth. Mara wasn't the only one who felt it. In the days after their escape from the Varen frigate, the Ardent Dawn's crew stopped joking about being freelance problem solvers. They started talking like soldiers. Like something bigger than themselves. And when they landed on the smuggler's bazaar of Riddle Station, they carried themselves with a new kind of weight. Riddle was a floating scrapyard with delusions of grandeur, half trade hub, half junk heap, orbiting a dying star. Every corridor reeked of oil and desperation. Mara loved it. Here, information flowed faster than credits, and she needed information. The crew split up. Jules went chasing rumors at the docking slips, Dara disappeared into the parts market, and Kate predictably wandered toward the underground fight pits. Mara headed straight for the cantina, where smugglers and pilots drank themselves brave enough to fly through consortium space. The barkeep was a six-armed insectoid who poured drinks like it wanted them dead. Mara ordered something flammable, downed it in a gulp, and leaned on the counter. "Got a question," she said. "Ever heard of humans?" The barkeep clicked its mandibles. "Humans?" Its voice rasped, like stones grinding. "Dead long time." Mara smirked. "Not that dead." She tapped her chest. "One's standing right here." The barkeep froze. Its antennae twitched. "You lie." Mara slammed her empty glass down, hard enough to crack the rim. "Do I look like a lie?" That got attention. Conversations around the cantina faltered. A dozen species, scaled, feathered, furred, and skinned, turned to stare. Mara didn't flinch. "Name's Lieutenant Mara Vey," she announced, letting the old rank roll out like a challenge. "Human. My people are alive. And we're done being forgotten." The silence broke with laughter. Not cruel like the Varen captains, more incredulous, more mocking. A hulking reptilian trader snorted so hard his drink sprayed across the table. A trio of avian couriers whistled derisively. Someone muttered, "Ghosts don't drink." Mara's jaw tightened. She wanted to punch the room into silence. Instead, she leaned closer to the barkeep. "Who spread it? Who decided we were extinct?" The insectoid hesitated. Its antennae twitched again, nervous. Finally it muttered, "Council decree. 3 centuries passed. Humans absent. Ships lost. Vote passed. Extinct filed." "Filed?" Mara hissed. "We were filed out of existence?" The barkeep clacked its mandibles in a gesture of apology. "Council moves slow. But forgets fast." Mara swallowed the heat rising in her throat. The Council, those pompous species who sat in orbiting palaces, pretending their laws kept the galaxy from tearing itself apart, had written humanity off like outdated paperwork. That was worse than insult. It was dismissal. She forced a smile. "Thanks. Keep the bottle." The crew regrouped in their ship's mess that night. Jules was pale, Dara was fuming, and Cade looked like he just had the time of his life. "They're laughing at us," Jules muttered. "Whole docks. Said humans like it was a bad joke." Dara slammed a wrench on the table. "Try finding parts when you're a species nobody recognizes. Half the dealers refuse to sell. The other half wanted triple price because I'm apparently collectible." Cade leaned back, arms folded. "Fight pit was better. Bet 3-1 on myself. Announcer billed me as last of a dead race. Took offense. Won every round. People paid good credits to watch the extinct human break bones." Mara pinched the bridge of her nose. "So we're entertainment, an oddity, and a bureaucratic error. Perfect. Captain?" Cade's tone sharpened. "You said it yourself, we're done being forgotten." "How?" The room quieted. Even Dara set down her wrench. Mara let the silence stretch before she answered. We remind them the only way they'll remember. Not with petitions. Not with pleas. With action. With fire. Jules looked nervous. Fire how? You mean war? Not yet. Mara's smile was thin. But the galaxy forgot us because we stopped showing up. So we show up. Loud. Opportunity came faster than expected. 2 days later, Riddle Station shook under a pirate raid. Mara and her crew were halfway through repairs when the alarms screamed. The raiders weren't ordinary smugglers. They were the Krezil, a brutal insectid swarm species that treated piracy as a rite of passage. Their ships clamped onto the station like ticks, cutting in with plasma torches. Station security panicked. Civilians scattered. The pirates poured in. Mara didn't hesitate. She grabbed her rifle, shouted for the crew, and barreled into the chaos. Cade was already grinning like a lunatic, knives gleaming in both hands. Dara hefted an improvised shock cannon built from scrap. Jules, to his credit, clutched his sidearm with shaking hands but didn't back down. They hit the Krezil like lightning. The pirates weren't expecting resistance from extinct vermin. Mara's first shot dropped a raider mid-screech. Cade tore through 2 more with brutal efficiency. Dara's cannon fired in arcs, shorting out exoskeletons and leaving charred husks. Even Jules found his courage, blasting 1 square in the chest. The crowd of civilians froze. Dozens of eyes, scales, and antennae watched in shock as the forgotten species fought like demons out of myth. One Krezil warrior snarled, mandibles dripping. Impossible. Humans are dead. Mara stepped forward, rifle smoking, eyes blazing. News flash. We're back. The fight turned. The pirates faltered under the sudden ferocity. Station security rallied, emboldened by the sight of humans ripping through raiders. Within minutes, the Krezil broke and fled back to their ships, leaving corpses and scorched metal in their wake. The station shook with cheers. Civilians surged forward, bombarding Mara with questions. Who are you? Are you really human? Where did you come from? Mara raised her rifle overhead. Humanity lives. And we don't run from fire, we bring it. Words spread faster than credits on Riddle. By the next cycle, the station buzzed with rumors. The humans were back. They weren't extinct. They fought like legends. Some swore they saw fire in their eyes. Others claimed they could smell smoke when they walked past. Mara let the myths run wild. Let the galaxy whisper. Let them wonder. But whispers weren't enough. They needed proof, something undeniable, something the council couldn't file away. That's when Dara pitched the idea. Consortium's running a weapons convoy through the outer drift, she said, pulling up schematics on the mess table. Frigates, gunships, experimental ordnance. Heavily guarded. Everyone's too scared to hit it. She looked up, eyes gleaming. So we hit it. Jules nearly choked. That's suicide. Cade leaned in, grinning. That's art. Mara stared at the schematics. Consortium convoys were nightmares. Layers of shields, escorts, and drones. Hitting one with a single patched-up ship was madness. But madness made memory. She nodded slowly. We take it. We don't keep it. We torch it. Let the galaxy see. Planning the raid took sleepless nights. The crew argued, cursed, and nearly came to blows. Jules worried they were biting off more than they could chew. Dara insisted on rewiring the Dawn's reactor to overclock its shields, even if it risked meltdown. Cade demanded extra ammunition, then volunteered to strap explosives to his own chest if it came to it. Through it all, Mara stayed steady. The Council had forgotten them. The galaxy laughed at them. But once the convoy burned, no one would laugh again. The day came. The ardent dawn dropped from drift space into the convoy's path, engines screaming with overclocked power. Ahead stretched a fleet of consortium ships, sleek and gold-plated, bristling with weapons. Drones swarmed in tight formations. The comms lit up instantly. Unidentified vessel. Vacate the lane or be destroyed. Mara grinned and flipped the channel open. Human vessel Ardent Dawn. Not vacating. Coming through. The line went dead. Weapons locked. And Mara whispered, time to make them remember. The convoy opened fire. Plasma lances slashed across the void. Mara threw the Dawn into impossible dives, thrusters howling. Cade manned the gunnery, roaring every time his shots slammed into drones. Dara cursed at the reactor, rerouting power like a madwoman. Jules sat pale-faced at sensors, feeding targeting data with frantic precision. The Dawn weaved, burned, survived. Then Mara hit the core of their plan. She dove straight into the convoy's heart, dodging barrages by meters, and slammed a cluster of EMP charges into the largest freighter. The blast rippled outward, frying half the drones in an instant. Chaos erupted. Escorts scrambled. Now! Mara shouted. Dara triggered the Dawn's modified engines, overloading their wake into a blinding plasma flare. The flare ignited the spilled fuel from a ruptured freighter. Fire blossomed in the void, unnatural, breathtaking, impossible in space, yet raging through vented atmosphere and volatile cargo. The convoy burned. Through the comms came panicked voices. It's the humans! The humans are alive! Mara's grin was feral. Damn right. They pulled out just as the last freighter detonated, a chain reaction lighting the drift like a second star. The Dawn limped away smoking, shields fried, reactor groaning. But behind them blazed a spectacle no one could ignore. The humans had returned. With fire. The galaxy did not stay quiet after the convoy burned. The footage spread like plasma through dry fields. Every docking bay, every tavern, every pirate hideout replayed the images. An unmarked ship diving through consortium fire, explosions chaining into a star-bright inferno, a human voice crackling over comms, human vessel Ardent Dawn. Coming through. In 3 cycles, the story reached the Council. In 5, the bounty appeared. The consortium offered 10 million credits for Mara Vey, alive or dead. 5 million for her crew. 500,000 just for proof of her ship's destruction. The joke had stopped. No one laughed about extinct humans anymore. They hunted them instead. The Ardent Dawn couldn't dock at friendly ports now, not that they'd ever had many. On stations, walls glowed with their wanted holos. Human terrorists. The captions read, though Mara noticed the wording carefully avoided confirming humanity's survival. The Council couldn't admit the truth yet, not publicly. So they ran. The Dawn limped from system to system, patching holes, stealing fuel, scavenging food. Dara spent more time elbow-deep in the reactor than she did sleeping. Cade grew restless, itching for fights they couldn't afford. Jules stared at the stars with a hollow look, muttering about how he hadn't signed up to be the galaxy's most wanted. Mara carried the weight. Always. Every message, every intercepted transmission, every bounty update landed like iron on her shoulders. Humanity had finally been noticed, but as criminals, monsters, ghosts on fire. And yet, despite the danger, she couldn't shake the fire in her chest. They weren't forgotten anymore. They were feared. Fear brought opportunity. It started with whispers. An old freighter hailed them in the drift, its captain a weathered miner with lunar dust still etched into his skin. He claimed to be human too, descended from a colony in the Outer Rim, one Mara had never heard of. He'd seen the footage, and for the first time in his life, he didn't feel invisible. We thought we were alone, the miner said, voice crackling with static. But you lit the dark. You gave us back our name. Then others came. A message hidden in cargo seals. A coded transmission bouncing across satellites. A half-burned signal in old Earth tongue. Always the same words, we are here. We are human. Mara realized with a jolt, humanity wasn't gone. It was scattered. Forgotten, yes, but not dead. Colonies too small to matter, freighters too far to count, families tucked into forgotten asteroids. They had survived. They had endured. And now, they were rallying. The Council noticed too. One quiet cycle, as the dawn skirted the edge of an uncharted system, the comms flared. A Council vessel, sleek, massive, bristling with authority, dropped out of drift. Its insignia marked it as a diplomatic enforcer. Mara Ve, the voice boomed, smooth and cold. You are charged with galactic terrorism, piracy, and impersonation of an extinct species. Power down your vessel and prepare for extraction. Mara cut the comms and looked at her crew. Dara's eyes burned. Cade grinned like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Jules paled but didn't look away. They don't want to arrest us, Mara said quietly. They want to erase us again. Permanently. So what's the play? Cade asked. Mara's jaw set. We don't run. Not this time. We show them what they tried to bury. The Enforcer launched interceptors, sleek craft, armed with weapons far beyond the Dawn's patchwork arsenal. Plasma bolts sliced across the void. The Dawn shook under the first volley. Shields at 30%, Dara yelled. Give me thrusters, Mara snapped, hands tight on the controls. The Dawn dove into impossible maneuvers again, weaving between shots, pushing its failing hull to limits no sane pilot would touch. But this time was different. The Enforcer wasn't a patrol frigate or a convoy escort. This was the Council itself. Their guns were precise. Their shields impenetrable. Their numbers overwhelming. We can't win this, Jules shouted. Mara's eyes narrowed. We don't need to win. We need to be seen. They dragged the fight into the shipping lanes, deliberately, recklessly. Merchant freighters, pirate skiffs, neutral transports, all forced to watch as a single human ship tore across the stars with a Council war machine at its heels. Mara flipped the comms wide open. Her voice thundered across every channel. My name is Mara Ve. I am human. My crew is human. My people live. The Council erased us, buried us, called us extinct. But here we stand. We survived your forgetting. And we will not vanish again. The interceptors swarmed, but Cade's gunnery roared. Drones fell in streaks of fire. Dara kept the reactor screaming, bleeding sparks into every console. Jules fed targeting data with wild precision, sweat dripping into his eyes. The dawn burned, but it burned bright. Every ship in the lanes bore witness. Civilians gasped. Pirates cheered. Traders whispered. The forgotten species was no longer a rumor. It was right in front of them, defying the most powerful force in the galaxy. The Enforcer moved in for the kill. Its main cannon charged, glowing like a newborn star. One shot would vaporize them. Options? Mara barked. None, Dara shouted. Unless you want to ride a reactor overload straight into hell. Not my style, Mara muttered. But Cade's grin turned feral. Maybe it should be. He slapped a detonator onto the console. A row of jury-rigged explosives armed themselves in the cargo bay, homemade, unstable, and far too powerful for their hull to survive. Mara, Jules whispered, horrified. If we blow that, they'll remember us, Cade growled. Mara hesitated. Her crew's faces burned into her mind, Dara's fury, Cade's madness, Jules's fear. Humanity's scattered survivors, listening to her broadcast. The galaxy itself, finally watching. She took a breath. Not today! We don't die yet. At the last second, she twisted the Dawn into a suicide dive, straight at the Enforcer's cannon. The warship hesitated, unwilling to risk self-damage. The shot veered off, ripping empty void. The Dawn skimmed the Enforcer's hull, scraping sparks, then punched engines into overdrive. The ship screamed, reactor bleeding, but it tore free into the black. They lived. Barely. And across the galaxy, the image burned, a forgotten ship defying the Council's might, daring to survive where it should not. After the battle, silence hung in the Dawn's mess. The crew was bruised, bloodied, shaken. Consoles still smoked. The ship groaned like a dying beast. But Jules finally spoke, voice trembling. We can't keep running. They'll chase us until we're ash. We need more. More ships? Dara asked. More us, Jules said. All those colonies, all those scattered voices saying we are here. If we don't pull them together, they'll stay forgotten. We need a fleet. We need humanity united. Mara felt the weight settle on her shoulders again, but this time, it wasn't just weight. It was purpose. She stood slowly. Then that's what we'll do. We'll find them. We'll gather them. And when the galaxy sees us again, it won't be one ship. It'll be fire across the stars. The crew stared at her. Cade's grin widened. Dara's eyes burned hotter. Jules, for once, didn't look afraid. Mara raised her glass, cracked, half empty, but steady. To humanity. Forgotten once. Never again. The crew raised theirs in unison. And in the quiet dark between stars, the ember became a flame. The galaxy had grown used to forgetting us. For centuries, Earth's name was a faded line in history, a footnote in council archives buried under more civilized species achievements. But now, standing in the smoldering ruins of Krellin's war assembly chambers with the fire of our warships still burning overhead, I could see in their eyes that they remembered. They remembered too well. And they were terrified. The silence was deafening. Not a single alien voice dared to break it. Not the Krellin overlords, not the Krath delegates, not even the chittering insectoid observers who usually never shut up. I could hear the hum of my own exosuit, the faint hiss of its cooling vents, and the slow, calm beat of my heart inside it. Every alien in the room expected me to demand their surrender, to name my price, to impose humanity's will upon them. Instead, I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who'd had enough. You burned our world, I said, my voice amplified through the chamber. You erased our name from your archives. You scattered our survivors across the stars and swore humanity would never rise again. My words echoed against the council's dome of obsidian metal, every syllable like a hammer striking glass. You forgot one thing. We don't stay down. Ever. A ripple of unease spread across the crowd. The Krellin Chancellor shifted in his ornate chair, his many-jointed fingers tapping the armrest. His species had engineered the purge of Earth centuries ago. He leaned forward, trying to appear calm. Human, he said with a voice like grinding stones. Vengeance is meaningless. The galaxy has moved beyond you. You have no allies, no empire, no claim. You are alone. Alone, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. Then I laughed. A cold, sharp laugh that made several delegates flinch. That's where you're wrong. I raised my wrist. With a gesture, the warship above the city projected a massive display into the chamber, thousands of signals, each one a fleet beacon, igniting across the void like a storm of stars. Every one human. Every one armed. Every one burning with the same purpose. Gasps spread. Even the Krellin Chancellor's stone mask cracked as his eyes widened. Impossible, he rasped. Your species was extinguished? I cut him off. We scattered, yes. But scattered embers still burn. Colonies you overlooked. Outposts you thought were ash. Families who refused to die. We built in silence, in the shadows you left behind. And when the day came, we lit the fire again. The alien assembly was chaos now, shouts, protests, cries of disbelief. Some demanded explanations, others whispered of war. But through it all, I stood unmoving, watching them unravel. This wasn't just about vengeance. It was about memory. About forcing the galaxy to see what it had tried to erase. The Council Guard commander, a towering reptilian with plates of green armor, stepped forward with his weapon raised. This meeting is over. Human, you will surrender and… Before he finished, my warship pulsed a beam of searing light across the distant horizon, cutting through 3 defense towers in a single strike. The towers toppled in silence, their wreckage blooming into smoke. The commander froze. His weapon shook. Then he lowered it. No, I said quietly, turning my eyes back to the crowd. This meeting has just begun. For hours, the negotiations burned like wildfire. The galaxy's most arrogant overlords found themselves forced to sit across from the very species they had written out of existence. They argued. They begged. Some even threatened. And every time they tried to dismiss humanity, I showed them another warship, another fleet, another ember of fire we had kept alive. We weren't negotiating from weakness, we were dictating terms. But it wasn't simple revenge I wanted. Revenge fades. Fear fades. Memory, though, that lasts. So I told them the terms. Humanity would return to the Council, not as a subjugated species, not as a forgotten footnote, but as a sovereign force with equal power to shape the stars. Every archive would restore our name. Every child in the galaxy would learn of Earth, not as the world that perished, but as the world that rose again. And if they refused? I gestured toward the burning horizon. They didn't refuse. Still, when the session ended and the chamber was emptying, I stayed behind. Alone among the shattered throne-like seats, I sat down where the Krellin Chancellor had been. My helmet retracted, exposing my face to the cold, smoky air. For the first time that day, I let the mask slip. It wasn't pride that weighed on me. It was sorrow. I thought of the billions who had died on Earth, of the cultures erased, the art lost, the songs silenced. I thought of the years our people had wandered broken, clinging to scraps of identity. None of this would bring them back. None of it could heal the wound completely. But maybe, just maybe, it could keep the wound from being forgotten. A soft voice broke the silence. It was Mira, the young lieutenant who had led me through the underground resistance tunnels before our assault. She stepped into the chamber cautiously, her face smeared with soot, her eyes glowing with both exhaustion and awe. "Commander," she said, "we did it. They'll never forget us again." I looked at her, really looked. So young, so fierce, carrying the fire of humanity's future in her eyes. "That's the point, Mira," I said softly. "They don't have to fear us forever. They don't even have to love us. But they will remember. And remembering is enough." Outside, the fleets shifted into formation. Across the galaxy, humans were rising, colonists raising banners, soldiers lifting weapons, survivors daring to speak their language aloud in places they had once whispered it. Humanity wasn't just back. We were alive. As the warship engines rumbled above, Mira tilted her head toward me. "What happens now?" "Now?" I stood, sealing my helmet once more, my voice turning hard as steel. "Now, we keep the fire burning. If they ever try to forget us again, we'll remind them. Not with whispers. Not with ashes. But with fire they'll never escape." And as I walked out of the chamber, past the defeated Chancellor and the shattered remnants of the Council, I realized something that made me smile. Not the cold smile of vengeance, but something brighter, fiercer. We weren't just back to claim what we had lost. We were back to build something greater than they could ever imagine. The galaxy had forgotten humanity. But now every star, every world, every frightened whisper in the night would remember. And this time, they'd never forget. Subscribe to the Void Narratives for more stories where humanity rises from the ashes and makes the galaxy remember who we are.